So you should be able to join. 2 people are in the waiting room. No. Ang nanonood din na video. Yeah, yeah. I realized during the work.
So please keep your camera switched on throughout the workshop. Use the raise hand function or type on the chat to answer. Because we have so many people, it will be very disorganized if we just unmuted ourselves and started speaking. So if you want to say something, put it on the chat ideally, or raise your hand and the workshop lead will give you a chance to speak. Fourth, please be respectful and polite to the workshop lead, volunteers, other participants. Disrespectful, indecent, or offensive behavior will not be tolerated. All discussions on the chat should relate to the workshop. Lastly, just be prepared to discuss, engage, and express yourself. This is not a lecture, it's an interactive workshop. Lastly, have fun and learn. So before I just hand over to Rajaa and we kickstart the workshop, may I ask the volunteers to please, in your name, like after your name, just put in brackets, put volunteers, so students know who is a PYF representative, who is here as a volunteer, and who is here to attend the workshop. Okay, so with that, waiting for some cams to switch on. A couple of cams still have not switched on. We'll be messaging you one-on-one to see why that's the case. But with that, Rajaa, you ready?
Yes, I am ready.
Okay, take it away.
Okay. Hey everyone. So for the new people who joined, I'm Rajaa Bokhari and I'm the instructor for today's workshop. And I am supported by Bushra, who's the head of education, and Zahid, who's the moderator for this workshop, and Aisha, who's a volunteer here. And we also have Zainab Khadim, who's from the media team at the PYF. So this whole session is going to be recorded. We will take some screenshots for media purposes. And yeah, Bushra's whispering instructions to me. She's sitting right next to me right now. We would also like it if you would leave us testimonials at the end of the workshop. So if you want to do that, just reach out to any of the names that I just called out, particularly Bushra and Zahid, and Zainab, and they will be able to record your testimonials. Okay, so I am going to begin by sharing my presentation today. A couple of things before that. So the first thing is that this originally was a workshop that was supposed to be in person. I'm not sure if any of you had attended it last year. The content is similar. Some of the things are pretty similar. We do go over the art of rhetoric. We go over logical fallacies, but we've introduced syllogisms, deductive reasoning, inductive reasoning, and the scientific method towards the end of the workshop. The other thing is that we will expect some group interaction. So during the second exercise, we're going to split you into little groups, into breakout rooms, and ask you to discuss the exercise, and then pick someone who's going to present to the rest of the class today. And finally, so it's going to be a little bit different from an in-person workshop. So I hope we can all work together to figure out what we want to do. Maybe it'll be a little bit unusual, unfamiliar in some places. But we're just trying to figure out and see how well we can work together. So I would love your cooperation in that regard. The other thing is that because an in-person workshop has a lot of interactions, I want to bring that here. Otherwise, it would become too much of a lecture, and I don't want to not hear from you. I am not such a big fan of my own voice. I want to hear from you talk. You guys talk, you learn to express yourselves, or practice expressing yourselves if that's something you already do. We do have a poet in our midst. And so use the raise hand function, use the chat. I will keep a note of it. I would also ask the volunteers to, Tabish, you're also a volunteer. Okay, so Tabish Latif is also a PYF OG. And so he's also a volunteer along with Aisha. And Zahid obviously is the moderator, and Zainab is from the media team. What I would ask the volunteers to kind of keep track of the participants who've raised their hands. So just in case I miss out on that, you can alert me to it through chat or maybe just unmute yourself. Whatever protocols apply here. Okay, so let's begin. I shall share my screen carefully, so I only show what I want to show. I think it's here. And let this little tab thing go away. Why isn't this tab thing going away? Okay, how do I switch to tabs? Okay, I think it's this here. Yes, finally. Okay. And we should go to the, this was the one of the exercises, guys. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so welcome to this workshop. This workshop is titled Critical Thinking. It does have some elements of public speaking as was advertised, but the public speaking would be mostly just on Zoom. So I'm going to be very happy if you all like share your answers or your thoughts and so on. And the volunteers to alert me to anyone who's raised their hand. So first of all, I want to start off with like, what is critical thinking? So critical thinking is an analysis of facts to come to a certain conclusion. So we have different types of facts. By fact, I don't just mean like 2 + 2 is 4, or the sun is a certain radius. I forgot. I used to know what the radius of the sun was. Okay, so these are like certain facts that this is what we assume facts are. But a fact can also be something like, where is this information source coming from? What was the mood of the person who was speaking? Were they happy or sad? Because this affects the way they, this affects the validity of the fact. So you look at all these different facts, you look at the environment in which you're receiving these facts, and using that, you form a judgment. And this is just one type of definition for critical thinking. I wonder if you have come across critical thinking before, like maybe through a course or something in school. If you have, I would like to know, like maybe you could like raise your hands and let me know. It's also called critical reasoning. Maybe it's a logic class through which you've done that. Maybe somewhere in math you were taught something like this. So I just realized this is really frustrating. I have to scroll through the whole thing. Okay. iPhone is still there. Who is iPhone?
If Sabiha, if you could change your name on Zoom, that'd be good.
Oh, okay. Atif, did you mean to raise your hand or give me an applause? Because both are nice, but I prefer you speak.
No, I didn't know where the raise hand function is, so I just couldn't clap. So I mean, like for us at least, I don't know about other curriculums, but for O level, it's like whatever concept they teach, it's usually that you need to know how to apply that in real life. So let's say in physics last year we learned projectiles. Now they would just teach us, how this works and what are formulas and everything. But your critical thinking comes in when they ask you some real life application questions, like in army there's this cannon, they have to shoot that cannon to reach to the other side. What exactly should be the velocity and everything? So you need to know how to answer that. You need to understand how to really look in at factors and how to really apply the formula. So I think that comes under critical thinking for us.
Yeah, actually, that is a form of critical thinking. It's very application based, and usually we just, this is just basically how science is done. But yeah, that's a relevant example. Have you come across something like, any of you, have you come across maybe like a syllogism where you have major premise, a minor premise, and then you have a conclusion? Or maybe you've come across logical fallacies. Have you been taught those in class?
No, that's a new term for me.
Okay, so then let's proceed then. I would also like to acknowledge Talha Kamran, who is another volunteer in this session. Hey Talha, thank you for joining us today. Okay, so some of the ways in which, when we're critically thinking, is we look at, we answer certain questions. So maybe like I said earlier, who said what was said? if they're in a position of authority, that makes a big difference to what they've said, depending on how much you agree or disagree with authority. What did they say? Like, is it a fact or an opinion, or has the entire a bit of information been provided? Do you need to know more, and so on? So these are just some of the questions that we'll ponder over as we learn to critically think. I have another slide with those questions. Like, when did they say it? What was their motivation to say something? What was the tone of voice that they were using? Was it clear what they were saying? So these are ways in which we can like learn to critically think. So what I want to start off with is the modes of persuasion. So the modes of persuasion were written in a book called On Rhetoric, and it's by a philosopher, Aristotle. So Aristotle might be a name that's familiar with some of you. He is considered one of the greatest philosophers of all time from ancient Greece. And in his book, he defined 3 ways in which you can persuade someone of your argument. So a big component of public speaking is, of course, the argument itself, right? So you can try to convince someone through 3 ways. One of them is ethos. Ethos is basically who is speaking, their credibility. 2 is pathos. Pathos is emotion, related to emotion, like the emotional environment that you're creating as you're speaking. And the 3rd one is logos, which is based on facts and data and logic. So like how you've structured the argument, does it make sense? What kind of facts are you using? What evidence you're using to support your argument? So we're going to start off with ethos. Okay, so ethos is the appeal to authority. That's well, I don't know if it's official, but this is how generally we define ethos. So appeal to authority. So when we're looking at authority figures, we look at 2 different things. We look at credibility. So how do we establish credibility? We look at whether there are professionals in a field. So if you attend this workshop, you want to know, okay, so what does Rajaa know that makes her an authority on this subject, right? And I could say, I'm an engineer, I've studied philosophy, I've done critical thinking, reasoning courses in college. Is she experienced in this field? I've given this workshop before. I've used critical thinking skills throughout my life. You also look at relevant sources. So when you are quoting a fact in particular, like you can be like, this is from this journal, or this is from this organization, and this organization is very relevant to this, to what we're talking about. The other thing you look at, which may sound a little bit on the more an appeal to emotion, but it actually is still an appeal to authority. It's reputation. So if you care about the argument being made, if you're interested in this argument, you look at the person making the argument. Do you think they have the same values as you? Do you think they're well reputed? For example, if you are getting a medical fact from a doctor, and it turns out that the doctor was had their medical license revoked, then it makes them less credible, right? You also care about how honest they are, what their reputation is like. Do they have integrity? Do they have a good style of communication? So those things also affect the way you look at an authority figure. And I'm sure like you're thinking of some authority figures for whom like charisma, integrity, and honesty we really care about. So these are some examples of ethos being used in these different facts that are being presented in front of us. So at this point, like I said earlier, this is a little new for me as well to do a workshop virtually. At this point, I just asked someone to read out what's being written here. I think I'm gonna try that. We'll see how it goes, okay? So would anyone like to just like read out the first example? I'm going to expand my screen so I can see some people. Okay.
Can I read?
Who said that? Sorry, I don't know why I can't see you. Could you please repeat that?
I was saying that could I read the first
Oh,
example?
Nabila. Okay. Your
Yeah.
name is like in the corner of my screen. I'm sorry.
Okay.
We're learning. Okay, Nabila. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. So examples of ethos. So on the first, it says that professional credibility. As a doctor, I strongly advise parents to have their children tested for lethal food allergies.
Thank you, Nabiha. Nabiha, do you have a comment on this maybe? Do you think this fact is
Um,
believable and why?
yes, as I myself have food allergy, it is really something that parents should test children's for, because at some point it got really bad for me as I got a lot of rashes. So if my parents knew these things beforehand, it won't cause that much problem for us.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Definitely. Like when we're looking, when we hear from a medical professional, of course, then maybe people would be, encouraged to test their kids for food allergies. So yeah, and this is an example of professional credibility. Maybe someone wants to read the second example.
I think Raja, they have two options. Either they read or you start picking people. And when you
Hanan
pick,
raised her hand.
yeah.
Okay, yay, Hanan. Initiative. Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, second one is relevant source. The Journal of Psychology recommends using positive and reinforcement to discipline children.
Thanks, Hanan. Hanan, have you come across this before? Using sources in school?
What kind of sources, sorry?
Have you come across, have you been encouraged in school to use sources, like use sources in an essay, maybe in an article you've been writing?
Not that much, actually.
Oh, okay. Could I ask you what class you're in?
I'm in 12th.
Okay, in 12th grade. Okay. I think I did this in college. Okay. And maybe someone can read out the last one. Thanks for that, Hanan. So Atif raised his hand.
The third one says we must follow the example of Abdul Sattar Edhi, one of the greatest philanthropists of Pakistan.
Why do you think that works?
A good character works because it simply assures the person that even you are not someone who would, leave them somewhere alone in general. Like, using the example of a doctor, if a doctor advises a parent to get their children tested, the first thing a parent think is, well, that will cost me money, I shouldn't. But if it's a good character, I think it just might assure them, okay, I probably should do that because, he is someone who's assuring me that it is something important.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So basically, like Abdul Sattar Edhi is a big character in our in Pakistan in our culture. So using him as an example of good behavior seems like a pretty strong argument. So let me just get back to this. Okay. So now we have a question, like a little bit of an exercise. So someone could please read out what the fact is and let me know what they think is a good source to support this fact. So if you had to use this fact in a research paper or you had to use it in a debate, what do you think? Which source do you think would most convince your reader or your audience?
Can I read?
2 participants raised their hands. 2 or 3. Who said, can I read? So if people probably notice that I cannot immediately catch someone's voice because there's just so many people, mashallah, in this workshop. I'm really happy. Farheen raised her hand. So Farheen, yes, please.
Research has found that including apples in your daily diet plays an important role in reducing the risk of disorders such as Alzheimer's disease. I think medical journal because it's related to health.
That is excellent. Thank you so much. Would someone like to tell me why the second or third ones don't work? Just pick any one of them, options B or C, and tell me why they're not good options. So I see Atif and Farheen have raised their hands again. I am going to ask someone new. Nabiha has raised her hand as well. Just because we've heard from these lovely people before, and I'm looking for someone, just like start to participate a little bit. Let us hear your voice. Okay, Rabia. Hi, Rabia.
Hello.
Hello.
I don't think so. They are good because we cannot trust who's writing them. We cannot trust that who is behind them. And medical journal, we know that they must be written by professionals. So they must be correct. And so that's why we should choose medical journal rather than Facebook post or juice company, because they are a brand. They want to sell their products. So they're definitely going to say good about it. So we shouldn't be trusting them. We should be trusting the medical journal here.
That is amazing, Rabia. Thank you so much for that answer. So let's move on to the second exercise. I'm really excited, you guys. You're all so smart. Okay. So I saw Bushra smiling as well. I can see the pride on her face. Okay. So this is the second second fact, I'm sorry. And we need to figure out which source is a good source for this fact. So who would like to tell me? I see Hanan and Rabia have raised their hands. I'm still gonna wait a little bit for someone new. Zara. Hi, Zara.
Hello. So the Burj Khalifa is around 828 meters tall and has more than 160 stories. I prefer Emaar since obviously it has built the Burj Khalifa.
Okay, that's actually the right answer, and it's very well justified. Thank you. So then I guess you guys know what we're gonna do next, right? Someone tell me why the other two options are not very good. You don't have to tell me both options, but you can just pick one and explain why do you think it's not a good source for this fact. Okay, I'm gonna ask Nabiha again because she's raised her hand multiple times and we enjoyed listening to her the first time.
Thank you. For forwarding messages on WhatsApp, we are not sure who is the other person behind the message, and also the fact that they can be educated about this fact and also cannot. So we cannot trust certain people. And for travel blogs, any type of people can do travel blogs, but they are not really trustworthy resources at times.
Okay, thanks, Abiha. So I agree with you on the travel vlog thing. I also think sometimes that travel vlogs can be funded. So they may say things that sponsored, sorry, not funded. So they may say things that may not be true. So even if this is like the Burj Khalifa has a certain height and people can verify it outside of the travel blog, right? They can go on Imar's website. The right answer actually is, but also it's just, then might as well just go to the Imar website. Why go to the blog? And the forwarded message, definitely. We never know where chain messages are originating from. So it's just a good idea not to rely on them for facts. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Yes, this is number 3. Okay, so who would like to volunteer? Okay, so I'm going to take Zahid's advice and just pick someone. So I am going to pick Huda Imran. Huda, are you here with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Huda,
Well, the third one is...
Is that possible?
It's not possible right now because I was just away from my camera right now and I can't yeah. So the third one is lions have one of the most complex communication behaviors of any of the cat species. They can make a variety of calls which includes roars, grunts, and growls. Option A is the CNN. I don't think it's this one because CNN mostly they just use clickbait at times, if you get what I mean. And option B is the Lion King movie. Lion King movies are like based on purely fiction, so I don't think so it's that as well. Option 6 is encyclopedia article, and that's the one because encyclopedia articles are written by professionals, of course, and they have been through so many studies and they have like looked watched lions up close, so that's why I'll choose that one.
Thanks so much for that comprehensive answer, Huda. So A is, sorry, not A, C. C is the right answer here. And Huda used a really interesting term called clickbait. Does anyone know what that is? Yes, Atif, please tell us.
Well, clickbait, I think it's self-explanatory, and it just means that, doing whatever to get the clicks on whatever thing that you are providing for the audience, like YouTube videos or an article, anything that can just get people to watch your content to make them curious.
So usually it ends up just trying to build an audience as opposed to telling them something factual that they want. So the clickbait title usually isn't related to the actual content. This can happen a
It,
lot, right, Atif?
it could be related, but it would always be very exaggerated or not as important as they show it to be. Just like a line from someone, oh, I met this one person, but like it was just a glimpse of a camera, that's all it was.
Yes, Atif, are you frustrated with YouTube clickbait titles?
No, my subscriptions are actually very specific, so I don't really go through any of that.
Nice. You're a curated subscriber. That's awesome. Thank you, Atif, for that answer. Okay, so let's move on to the last question in this exercise, I think. Okay, this one. So anyone wants to volunteer for this one? Okay, so, oh, hey, Huda, you turned on your camera. Thank you. I think I should just start calling people out, Bushra, and then they turn on their cameras because they feel so comfortable. Okay, so let's pick Mehreen.
All right, so number 4 says, every summer in my grandmother's village, the main food grown are mangoes. The 3 options are Steel Construction Handbook, my grandmother who's lived in the village all her life, and the country's national website. Now, obviously, what happens in my grandmother's village would be more, would be like the one telling about it would obviously my grandmother. Like a street construction handbook wouldn't know what happens in my grandmother's village, and neither the country's national website, obviously.
So, I have a question. So this is not specifically for Mehreen, who answered this question brilliantly. I have another question, which is why not the country's national website? I mean, it is the national website of the whole country, and the village we're assuming is in this country. But for some reason, that's not the answer that Mehreen is most comfortable with. Maybe someone knows why she's not comfortable with this answer. And Mehreen, hopefully you're comfortable with, turning on your camera when you can. Okay, so Zara, raise your hand. Zara, please tell us.
Yeah, so the national website would already be talking about political views rather than going to someone's private or individual life, knowing what they like and dislike.
I think you're very close to the answer. So maybe we can say that the national website would cover a lot of issues in the country and may not be able to give specific attention to this very specific activity in a tiny village in the country, right? What do you think of that, Zara?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's move on to the next slide then. Okay, so what we have here is pathos. So pathos is appeal to emotion. We looked at ethos, which was appeal to authority, and now we're looking at emotion and sentiments and values. So what we want to do is we want to have the audience feel something when they are listening to our argument. Depending on the story, that emotion could be something like happiness or anger or a sense of injustice or hopefulness and so on. So usually the best way to do that is not just like say, hey, be sad, be happy. It's more like you create a story around it. You know, you help construct a narrative. So through that narrative, you can use lots of descriptive words. You can use a lot of like feeling, strong feeling. You can frame the description to evoke those feelings. And then you can also, as you're speaking, adjust your tone and the words that you're using. So the words, obviously, you can use strong language or like strong language, not as in like swearing and stuff, which might be okay in some contexts. I don't know. I don't know if I can endorse something like that. Can I, Rajaa? But when you're using your different types of words, what I mean by strong language is that you can use powerful words, you know, that really like evoke the emotional response that you're looking for. And you can also adjust your tone. So maybe you're noticing that I'm doing that as I'm speaking. So when I speak to you and I say the word powerful, I slow down and I make the word like, it's like as if you draw like a wave to show the tone that I'm using, then it's going to go up and down and it's going to emphasize certain syllables in the words. So the way you speak has a very strong effect on the story itself. We're going to look at some examples and maybe you could help me read those examples in a convincing way, and you could also maybe show me what it's going to sound like if we like just say it in a monotone, if we say it in the most boring way possible. So let's start. What examples do we have? Okay, so here's one. Would anyone like to go? Okay, I'm gonna pick Farheen.
Examples of pathos and rhetoric. Descriptive story. During the long winter nights, there is no shelter for the homeless from the cold.
So Farheen, can you say this in a way that you think would have a stronger impact? Maybe you could say it slower. Maybe you could say it in a
during the long winter nights, there is no shelter for the homeless from the cold.
So that was more impactful. Yes, thank you, Farheen. Exactly. This is what we're going for. Sorry, Farheen, did you say something? I think I interrupted you.
I said welcome.
Okay. So what about the next one? Does anyone want to read that? With emotion. We want to evoke emotion. Also in a slightly manipulative way, because I realize this is a really strong sentence. Okay. All right. Who wants to go next? I think we'll Furqan, I saw you unmute your mic. Is it because you were hoping to speak?
Hello, my name is Furqan Hafiz. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so number 2 is evoking emotions. If you don't visit your grandmother, it will break her heart. Yeah, obviously it will do that. This would impact negatively.
It might.
So,
sometimes
yeah.
My grandmother is like, okay, but okay. So yeah, definitely. If someone's gonna say something like this to you, then it's gonna have a very strong impact and would convince you or make you want to think of whether you should be doing this or not. I actually really do want to visit my grandmother. It's been like a year. Okay, she gets me like amazing food, people. You know how it is with grandmothers. Okay, what about the third one? Would anyone like to read that out? So our friend Atif is here raising his hand, but I think I'm gonna pick Hunza because I love the name and it's evoking all this like gorgeous scenery in my mind, the trees and everything. Hunza, are you there? I think Hunza isn't here with us. How about Aisha Mannan?
Yes.
Hi, Aisha.
Hi.
Aisha, would you like to read the third example of pathos for us?
Yeah, shredded values. Pakistan has given us so much, and it's now our turn to stand up for our beautiful nation.
Thank you, Aisha. Aisha, you also, use your tone to kind of evoke certain emotion. I really appreciate that. That's been noticed. And with that, we will move on to the next slide. Okay, so now we have logos, right? So logos is something that we instinctively think is what we mean when we're talking about rhetoric and convincing arguments, right? Because logos is basically an appeal to logic, right? And logic can be a few things. So first of all, the main thing you need to do is you need to justify your argument. You need to have a reason behind what you're saying. And you can justify your argument by giving examples, like for instance, for example, and so on. You can give facts. So these facts can be from any of the sources that we discussed. So the better the source of your fact, the more logically appealing your argument becomes. So you can see how these things are kind of linked, right? You're picking out a fact from an authoritative source. And also the same thing with numbers. So statistics is a good way, using words like the majority or something like that. Those are the kinds of words that give it a bit more of an analytical feel, and that can strengthen your argument. The last thing you want to do is make sure to avoid logical fallacies. Wait, was that sentence right? The last thing you want to do. The last thing you want to do is commit a logical fallacy. Hey, it works both ways. So, okay, so you want to avoid logical fallacies because they invalidate your argument. The thing is, though, not everyone is excellent at picking out logical fallacies, because it's not because this is something that is instinctive. It's something that has to be learned. So we go over logical fallacies like multiple times in different contexts. And as we're learning this more and more, we become sharper and sharper at picking that up. So we will discuss some logical fallacies right after this next exercise. And we're going to go over some of them. There are many, many logical fallacies that you can look at. I picked some that I feel are more common in our cultural context, particularly, and it'll be very useful for you to be able to learn them and practice them on the side. So these are examples of logos in rhetoric. So I also noticed that we have a bit of a time crunch, but I think we can do this. I like hearing you participate. This will be great. Okay, so who wants to read out the first example? I'm going to pick Sabiha. Sabiha, are you here with us today?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Sabiha.
Okay, so it has been reported that 75% of patients cover fully through this treatment.
Thank you, Sabiha. So this is a fact that uses numbers to make the argument more convincing. Anyone wants to read the second one out loud? I will pick Fatma. Fatma Salim. Is Fatma Salim there? Okay, so then I'm just gonna, yes, Talha, a volunteer of ours. Okay, Talha.
Yes, experience. In over 15 years at this company, my project strategy has never failed.
So Talha, does this also sound like another type of appeal to, like another kind of mode of persuasion?
Yes, it sounds like that.
Does it maybe sound like an appeal to authority as well?
Not really, but yes, it does a little bit.
Because since this person has 15 years of experience.
Yeah, professional, because that is, yeah.
Thank you. This is so they're kind of like sometimes they merge together on the different modes of persuasion. Thank you, Talha. So okay, so the third one, two participants have raised their hand. Oh, I do want to let the volunteers and moderator know that sometimes it's not easy for me to see the chat. These are things that we're learning as we do more virtual workshops. So maybe Manar could read out the third one. Manar Janin.
Hi. Reason: if schools encourage more extracurricular activities, children will more real life skills.
Yeah, thank you for that. So this is a statement that's supported by a reason, basically. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so let's move on to the last one. The next section of this. So how to detect faulty logic. Hang on. Okay. Right. So I have some logical fallacies in this list. Vishnu, will people get the presentation at the end of this session? Yeah, it's up to you if you want to share it. Okay. Because I feel like if I have the list here, then they can look at it whenever they'd like. Thank you. Okay. So let's start off with the first logical fallacy. So an ad hominem literally means against the man, but since we like to be more equal here, against the person or group, because it applies to people, basically. So the basic idea behind ad hominem is that you cannot insult your opponent in an argument. So if you call someone stupid, for example, in the first example, you can see that, right? You don't agree with someone's stance, and your reason for that is because they're stupid. That's a very unfair way to argue, because it's not a real argument. If you don't support someone's stance on veganism, the problem here is that you don't support, there's something about veganism that you don't agree with. It's not the person. You could always consider a person an unreliable source, but even then you have to justify, why do you think this person is an unreliable source, right? Their mental capabilities or talking about them is extremely, it's unprofessional, it's impolite, it's extremely crass. And this is something we want to avoid. And unfortunately, a lot of us, when we're talking to someone and trying to convince them of something, we tend to get very heated up about it. So our default becomes to undermine them. This is designed to undermine them, make them feel unsure about themselves. And that's just manipulative. So we avoid ad hominem attacks. This is the first thing that you will be taught in any class on rhetoric or public speaking. If you participate in debate, you will definitely not be allowed to say something like this, and it will be an immediate disqualification. Another kind of ad hominem attack is also something that is aimed towards someone's experience. Seems to be, like, for example, in the second example, you can see that you can tell someone that you're not allowed to give parenting advice because you're not a parent. However, the reason this doesn't work is because parenting advice is, it's wide. There's so much stuff that can be said. There's so many things that can be said through science and other people's experiences, through logic and justification. And everyone has been a child, and children have some, and they probably remember things that their parents could have done. So you could see like a lot of ways in which someone who's not a parent giving parenting advice is acceptable, because their way of supporting their argument does not rely on their experience of being a parent. So in this case, it can also end up becoming an ad hominem. So what you would want to do is discredit your opponent without any personal attacks by using facts and data. So for example, new research disproves your claim. That's a pretty good, that's a fact-based argument. And the doctor you mentioned was arrested for malpractice. So the source that you're using is not a credible source. Then another one we have is strawman. So strawman is a bit tricky to detect, but it's very commonly used. So if someone gives you an argument and you change the argument so it sounds different, and you respond to that, that's what's called a strawman. So we know scarecrows, right? We know what a scarecrow is. So basically a scarecrow is like not a person, like a shape of a person put into a field, so that I think it's for birds, like birds like are scared, they think it's a real person and they go away. So this is where the straw man argument name is coming from as well. So like basically what you're doing is you're responding to something that isn't actually there, as in you're responding to an argument that doesn't exist. So I have two examples here of a straw man argument. The first one is, I'm sorry guys, I'm like just trying to figure out if I wish I could see all of your faces at the same time. Okay, anyway, so we should raise our workers' salaries so to better reflect their hard work. So that's the argument, right? The argument is, what do you want to have done? You want to raise people's salaries. And why do you want to do that? Because you want to compensate them for their hard work. However, if the other person responds like this, you're wrong because we should not give people free money. Why does that sound wrong? Why does that not sound like it's a proper argument? Can anyone explain that to me?
Yes, because it's actually mentioned that they're paying back for the hard work, but over here they say about the free money. It's not actually free, it's actually relevant to their hard work.
Excellent, Nabiha. That's exactly it. So they're arguing for against something that we never said. And then for the second example, person one says kids learn a lot from playing outside, and person two says you want children to skip their classes. Why does that sound wrong? Maybe Nadeem can tell me why that sounds wrong.
Farheen has raised her hand, Sabiha has raised her hand.
Okay. Let's ask Farheen. Farheen, why do you think the second argument doesn't sound good?
It sounds wrong because the first person never said that he wanted kids to bunk their class. He just said that kids learn a lot from playing outside.
Exactly. You guys are getting it. So usually when I'm reading through these logical fallacies, I get extremely angry. So I don't know if anyone's feeling this way, please let me know. Because I feel like we've all been discredited in this way. And unfortunately, we've probably discredited other people in the same way. So when we're learning about logical fallacies, we're not just like learning to make better arguments, but we're also getting better at listening to another person to really understand what they're saying instead of jumping to our own conclusions. Okay, so we've done strawman, then we have appeal to tradition. So this is a very common thing. So appeal to tradition is basically we stick to what's always been done. Just because something has been done a certain way for a very long time is not a justification to keep doing it. Why? Because traditions are good as long as they are victimless or they're justified with proper reasoning. I think that being victimless is the most important. Sometimes the reason anyone would want to like throw out an old tradition and bring in a new one is because they feel like this tradition harms a certain group of people. So in this case, what would you do? You would want to ideally get rid of that tradition, but not everyone is like that. For example, since I'm a working professional, the first one hits home for sure. Does it hit home for you too? Okay, we can't change work hours from what they've always been. This is a very common argument. It's just the way it is. It's always been 8 to 5 or 9 to 6 or so on. The funny thing is, this is not factually correct because they've not always been this way. They've been longer, especially during the industrial age in the Western world. The working hours were literally inhumane. And the fact that they're 8 hours or 9 hours now is because of a lot of activist work to change those hours to make them more humane. So this is why this argument, this appeal to tradition absolutely does not work. It's based on faulty information. You should be an engineer because it's family tradition. How many of you have heard something like this? My dad told me I should be an engineer because I'm smart. So that was an appeal to emotion that he did there. Damn. Okay. All right. 2 participants raised their hands. Let's ask Atif again.
I mean, I was just gonna say that, yeah, I'm gonna be an engineer because that's what I've been taught, you should be an engineer, man. That's fine. The only fields we look at is a doctor, engineer, lawyer kind of thing. So yeah.
No, I know. Atif, I feel that. I hope you continue your poetry as an engineer because I think there's nothing cooler than an engineer who moonlights as a poet at night. That's amazing.
That's like a passion thing, so I'll keep
Yeah.
on doing it wherever life takes me. Like that's not something I'm leaving for anything.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay. We'll move on to the next one. Sabiha, I have noted your raised hand and I will want to have you participate with us pretty soon. So there are some traditions that are totally okay. I mean, I love Mehendi on Eid, and it's traditional, but it's also because I like it. If I don't know, if I was allergic to Mehendi or something and people were like, no, you have to put it on because it's tradition, then it would be a big problem, right? The last example, I just think I put it in because I just enjoy philosophy and I want to shove it everywhere. Descartes is a very famous philosopher, but I think his trademark argument is logically incoherent. So here, Descartes is a very famous philosopher. He definitely is. He's well known. And then you have that kind of like appeal to authority come up. He also is a very good philosopher. And it's not just an appeal to authority, it's also an appeal to logos, right? Logic. It makes sense to want to look at someone who makes really logical arguments. However, one of his arguments isn't very good, the trademark argument, which I think sounds kind of funny to me. You guys can look it up later. So the way we would counter something like this is not say, okay, oh, this is stupid, throw it out or whatever. We would say something like, there's a logical reason why this argument isn't very good, and I'm going to talk about it. So you can use logic to fight traditional, to fight arguments that are based on tradition. Or maybe we shouldn't use the word fight, to counter. And how many do we have left? Let me just check really quickly. Okay, we have a few more. Okay, so we have a slippery slope. Slippery slope is known in multiple different fields of just known by different words. So slippery slope is like when you have something really small happen and you assume that the consequence of it is going to be very big or negative to the point that it's almost ludicrous. So for example, if you increase your students' grades, they will stop working hard, then fail all their classes, then get rejected by colleges, then have no jobs and become miserable and homeless. Does that sound ridiculous? So it's always like this. Like it's always like a small thing that is happening in a particular time period. And if someone is afraid to change it or feels insecure about this change, they come up with this crazy idea that something massive is going to happen that's unrelated. But the thing is, a way to detect the slippery slope is always that you look at every single step of this argument and see what are the multiple factors that can actually prevent the consequence that you've constructed in your head. So if you increase a student's grade, they will stop working hard. Just because you increase their grades, they will stop working hard. There's no other way to motivate a student to work hard. So, and then you can look at the other step. They'll fail all their classes. Sometimes you don't have to work very hard to pass all your classes. Sometimes you're just smart that way, or sometimes like, maybe they won't fail. Maybe they will still pass. Maybe they won't be that successful. Like they're not going to have the top grades, but they're going to have good grades enough to pass. So I'm coming up with all of these little ways in which I can stop the final consequence from occurring. And this is what we're going to be encouraging ourselves to think. Because even in psychology, there's a term for a slippery slope, particularly in cognitive behavioral therapy. It's called catastrophizing. So catastrophizing is this unhelpful way of thinking in which we assume that because of one small thing, a very big consequence is going to occur. And it usually is a manifestation of anxiety. So if you're going through any kind of treatment for anxiety, your therapist would generally help you understand where your thoughts are being unhelpful because they're not supported by evidence or fact. So another one we have is false dilemma. So it's also called the either or fallacy. Either or fallacy. I don't know what the right pronunciation is. Okay. So this one always assumes that we have just two choices. You either support this bill or you hate your country. I feel like I've heard this before. And if you're really my friend, you will lend me money. What is wrong with both these statements? Zahid and I had a discussion about this recently. So maybe Zahid, you want to volunteer just a little bit? Why do you think this is wrong?
Okay, thank you, Raja. Because this is this kind of dilutes the message of what the principal ask is, where it is that if you can lend the money, and then you as an individual taking a call that if you are in a position to lend that money or not based on all the facts that they have presented. But because they said if you are really my friend, they are kind of manipulating your thoughts and not letting you take a decision based on the facts and your situation. It is like putting you in confusion, whereas in the first place you should have been given the freedom of, or you must always have the freedom of making a decision based on the facts that are on your hand, rather than someone adding something to it so that to manipulate your decision. So this kind of adds the manipulation element. And also false dilemma is that now you are not actually questioning the fact that can I lend the money or not. You are actually thinking, am I a good friend or a bad friend? Thank
Exactly.
you.
That is just so brilliantly put, Zahid. So this kind of argumentation takes away from the core message being put forward. Like, what is the problem here? The problem here is that for you don't support this bill. You have some questions about this bill, right? The question is the argument here isn't whether you love your country or hate your country. Maybe you could be supporting this bill because it's good for the country, or not supporting it because that's good for the country. So when such strong emotional language is used in an argument to create this false dilemma, then it just detracts from what we're actually considering here. So like there's a spectrum of different options, as like Zahid was explaining to us. There's so many different things that we want to look at: the situation, facts, numbers, and so on. And sometimes and sometimes, yeah, it's true, options are limited. For example, if you only have two choices of ice cream at an ice cream stand, but a lot of the times that's not true, and it's important for us to consider that. And another very important thing to do here is, especially when you're having a discussion with someone with the core purpose of listening to them, to understanding them. If they're presenting two options, you could ask them, you could help them explore other options. Maybe the other options aren't on their minds. But if you think that, if you are kind and empathetic and compassionate, you want the other person to be able to express themselves, you want them to be able to make good decisions for themselves. So in a good, compassionate discussion, you help each other figure out what are all the different options, which options are good, which options are bad, which options are options B and not the first option that you would go for. Kind of create a place where you don't feel like you're in the middle of scarce resources or something. That there are a lot of different things you can take into consideration. That it's not either or. Either or it can be a very anxious place to be. So it's important for us to want to encourage both the person we're talking to and ourselves to explore multiple avenues before we come to one single one. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Argument to moderation. This is a pet peeve of mine. Okay, so argument to moderation is, why are we having an argument in the first place? Can we all just get along? Basically, so it's not as if there is never a neutral position, or neutral positions automatically are always bad. That's absolutely not the case. It's just that in some places, it's impossible to have a neutral position, and you have to make a choice. So the first example is pretty straightforward, right? A thinks the sky is blue, B thinks it's red, so let's say it's purple. What's wrong with this? It's just wrong. That's not possible. The sky is not purple. We can verify this. I'm an engineer. We can look at the electromagnetic spectrum and figure it out. Appeal to authority. So the second one is A and B are arguing. I think both of them are wrong. What's wrong with this argument? I want to explore this a little bit. Dania, hey. Okay. Please, what do you think?
Well, I think over here, argument is taken as something that is a cause of chaos. It can be due to the manners that the two people are arguing in, but instead of just reaching on a conclusion and just telling that which one of them is right according to the facts they're using, they're just telling that the act of arguing is wrong itself, which is wrong.
Absolutely, Nanya, absolutely. This is what's going on. Conflict itself is not a bad thing. Conflict is important and it's healthy. And there are ways to have healthy conflict. I'm sure, if you're using ad hominem attacks during a conflict, or you're distorting someone's argument in a conflict, those are underhanded tactics. And I definitely will not encourage anyone to use those. But at the same time, conflict itself is it's a learning experience. You disagree with someone, you figure out why you disagree with the other person, you figure out what perspective they're coming from, what facts they're looking at. You can speak to each other politely. You can use language that encourages discussion. But that doesn't mean that conflict itself is a bad thing. And conflict avoidance has its psychological reasons. Some people are conflict avoidant. Some people are conflict avoidant only in specific situations sometimes. Maybe like, especially when it comes to authority figures, sometimes people have trouble confronting authority figures, right? Especially their boss or their parents and so on. So definitely there are reasons behind it, but it's not a good mode of existence to constantly avoid conflict. And this is what I want to emphasize here. Especially if like two of your friends are arguing, right? And you want them to not argue. That is a very, very good intention. You don't want people to argue because if they're saying hurtful things to each other, they're going to, you know, ruin their friendship. It's going to affect them negatively. It's going to affect their emotions. Or if they're arguing and they're not reaching a resolution, they might exhaust themselves. So you step in to get that argument to go down, to be more tempered. So in that case, what you can do is obviously try to understand each other's perspectives and communicate better. But telling them both of them are wrong hurts them, because it could be true that one of them has been hurt by the other person, and they're trying to get the other person to help them understand that. But if you come in and tell both of them you're both wrong, then the person who has genuinely been hurt by another one's actions is going to remain hurt. So you're not encouraging them to resolve their problems. You're letting the hurt party stay hurt and have all these feelings of resentment and anger build up inside them. So always I admit, not a big fan of conflict, but learning to cope with conflict in a good way is an extremely important part of being a compassionate person. And the last example illustrates that very well. I neither oppose nor support the war. I'm neutral. What happens in this case? Why is this not right? Why can you not be neutral in a situation like this? I'm going to ask one of our volunteers to participate. Maybe Aisha Bernie can participate here. Let us know why she thinks this is wrong.
Hi, sorry, I was just finding the unmute button. I neither oppose nor support the war. Well, I think when it comes to matters like war, you know, it becomes a huge moral issue because there are ideological elements to both sides, and this is something when you you know, there's a lot of victims, there's a lot of consequences, there's human loss, there's capital loss, and when you remove yourself from that situation, basically what you're saying is that, you know, I don't really care, right? And you don't really care about the consequences. You're not putting in the effort to sort of to find out like what the root causes of all of this violence is. And so I think this is something that we like doing because we don't want to, I guess it's avoidance. We, you know, as human beings, we like avoiding discomfort. And having to make a decision on something like this, a moral issue like this, puts us in that discomfort, and we try to remove ourselves from it. But I don't think, you know, things like this, I don't think there's a neutral ground.
Exactly. So we're letting our discomfort with conflict possibly cause damage to other people. So in this case, in a case of war, if you have one side that's stronger, you not supporting either side actually means that you're supporting the stronger side. Maybe if you picked a side, you could oppose the stronger side, or maybe if the stronger side was right, you think it's right, you can, you know, be a part of that. It also applies to voting. People sometimes choose not to vote because they think, oh, there are no good options, or I don't care either way. But then in that case, the one who has the more popularity is automatically going to win. So it seems as though you were on their side all along. So in actuality, here's a logical fallacy: you're not actually neutral. I think this is the last one. So, okay. So now we're going to go to our breakout rooms. So I'm going to collaborate with the volunteers here. So basically, guys, what this next exercise is about is I'm going to give you 6 images, okay? When I give you these 6 images, you're going to pick one image and you're going to discuss it amongst yourselves, okay? You'll be divided into small groups, and those groups will be put into breakout rooms, okay? So you'll know each other through the breakout rooms. You'll look at the image and you'll describe the image. When you describe the image, you're going to tell me why you think what is happening in the image is true. You're going to justify your descriptions, okay? So try to think of like, you don't actually have to tell me it's, oh, this is an appeal to logos or appeal to ethos or whatever. We were going through those exercises because we want to be in that frame of mind where we think critically. So as you hopefully have now come into that frame of mind since throughout, theory and practice, I want you to apply that in this exercise and then pick one person from your group to describe and explain, okay? And you can be a couple of people. It doesn't have to be one person representing the whole group. It can be two people representing that group, okay? So we have 6 images here. I am going to come into each of the, no, actually, wait, let me consult with the expert here. For sure, what do we do?
Do the breakout rooms?
Yeah.
Okay, I will, so not that everyone knows the activity, I will now set up the breakout rooms and explain how it works. So what we're going to do is, since we have 25 participants and how many volunteers? So 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 7 volunteers. If we remove that, we can do about 6 breakout rooms of at least 3 people each with 1 volunteer in every breakout room. Maybe one of the rooms will have a couple of extra people. All right, so now what I'm going to do is, before I set it up, I just want to emphasize one thing. First of all, raise of hands if you've done breakout rooms before. Raise your hand if you've done breakout rooms before here. Anyone?
Okay, Zainab has.
Okay, not a lot of people have. So let me first explain how it works. What's going to happen is, basically, we're going to split the Zoom session into 6 Zoom sessions. Okay, and each Zoom session will have 3 to 4 students and 1 volunteer. All right, and you're going to do the activity together. And what's going to happen, you get a message like join breakout rooms. I'm going to set it up myself manually over here. And you just get a message join breakout room. Please click that so you can join the breakout room. All right. The tricky part is, then you can have a discussion, go through the activity. How much time do they have, Rajaa?
5 minutes. That's
5 minutes. So you'll do the activity then, and it's fine. But when you're coming back to the Zoom session, please let me share my screen and show this to you actually. Don't click leave meeting, click leave Zoom session. And I will just quickly, Mariam made this wonderful presentation to explain the difference so that no one gets confused. You have to stop screen sharing.
Yeah, I'm doing. Okay.
I'm going to share my screen now. All right, so you'll see here that this is the first message you'll get, join breakout room. Okay. And when you're about to leave the breakout room, you will see this. You click नीचे button होगा bottom right corner पे, leave room. When you click that, you'll see this menu, leave meeting or leave breakout room. Do not leave the meeting, because then you have to find a Zoom link and come back and you might miss part of the session. Please click leave breakout room. All right. So can I get a thumbs up from people who understood this?
Guys, you know how to do a reaction?
Yeah, awesome. I see some thumbs up here. All right, another quick thing, poor Zai has been doing an amazing job of moderating the session. Thank you all of you who have switched your cams on. If some of you wish I explain why you can't switch your cam on, we totally understand. But if you have not interacted at all, we can't just put people randomly in a breakout room with someone we don't even know is there. We don't even know what they look like, or we haven't spoken. So we're now like taking a moment to remove those people. Before we set up the breakout room. So please be, if you have not been able to interact so far, if you've not been able to switch on your cam, reach out to Zahid now, because I'm going to give him like next 1 minute as I set up the breakout rooms manually to just kind of moderate the session and remove people who have not been responding at all. In the meantime, I will start setting up the breakout rooms.
Basha, I'm going to show them the images just so they have an idea of what I'm talking about. So I'm going to share my screen again.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, critical thinking workshop, share. Okay, so these are the images. So if you're in breakout room 1, you have image 1. Breakout room 2, it's image 2, and so on until image 6. I have a picture file format, whatever it's called, a JPEG. I have a JPEG, and I'm going to go to every breakout room and give you the JPEG. At the same time, if you would like, maybe you could just do a quick screenshot of this so you can start faster. Let me just make this bigger, present, right? Okay, so do you want to take a screenshot of this? I'll give you a moment to do that while Bushra and Zahid do complete their tasks.
Hunza, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
I'm all set. So Zahid, when you're ready, we're going to go into the activity.
Yeah, I think I'm ready. We can go to the breakout rooms. Thank you.
Hope everyone is taking a screenshot, selected their image. I'm going to count to 10, and then it's opening up. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I just counted 5. 4 and 5. Here we go. All the rooms have been opened.
We still have last 30 seconds, so we'll make sure that everyone comes back.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being back here, and thank you for doing the exercise in the breakout room. Super happy to see how everyone was like super enthusiastic about it and participating and, you know, listening to each other, cooperating. And now we're going to see the results of that. So obviously some of the results are latent, as in y'all are becoming friends, hopefully, fingers crossed. Okay, so let me open the list of people in the breakout rooms.
I'm just sending it now to you.
Okay, thanks, Rasha. So I did want to make a quick little announcement. So this session is officially supposed to end at 12, but this is our first workshop, and we've been trying to figure out what works for the workshop and what doesn't. So in a sense, you've been just cooperating with us to help us figure out logistics. And I think what I've estimated from here is that we may need a few more minutes after 12. So I do absolutely respect if you don't have the time to do that. So you can just let us know in the chat when it's close to 12 that you want to leave. We can, you know, say our goodbyes. You can give me your last thoughts or whatever, and we can connect later if you'd like. And I will send you the presentation. To every single person who's attended, you will have a copy of this presentation. However, if you would like to stick around, I think it would take tops 15 more minutes. So 12:15, I think we would be done with the rest of the content. So just make your decision now. Figure out if you can stay until after 12, until 12:15, 12:20. And if you can't, that's totally okay. Just let me know beforehand, like 5 minutes before you leave, that you want to exit the session. Okay, so I have a list of breakout rooms now. I am going to ask people from the breakout rooms to let me know what they want to talk about regarding the image. So from breakout room 1, who would like to go first? Or who is your representative? Breakout room 1. First, people in the breakout room 1, could you raise your hands? Okay. All right. So who is the representative from breakout room 1 who wants to describe the image for us? So let me share my screen so we can see the image again. Where is the present button? Okay. All right. Group 1, go.
Actually, we both thought of doing it halfway. So like I can cover like what I thought of the image, and then Atif could do the second. So can we
I love
start?
that. Yes, definitely.
Okay. So firstly, I thought of the picture as it's a form of heated argument, and the person 1 is a caveman, and by his attire, I can say that he's not as educated as person 2. So he might get on with his emotions. And secondly, I also thought that the second person could have sort of used a personal attack. I mean, when you look at the picture first, you don't think it that way. But when you observe a little bit, you might like think of it that way, that the second person might have boosted his status or his education to the other one, and that's why the caveman, as I use the word, could have resulted in a heated argument. So I thought
So
that
you
way.
think that the person in the tie and button-down shirt may have said something offensive to the the
Yeah.
person dressed as a caveman?
Yeah, he might have boosted his education, and that might have angered the caveman.
Okay, okay. So kind of like attack the pride of the first person.
Yeah, so to add on to that, I think it's as Danya said. I'll just add on to that it's like a very big emotional barrier, and it usually comes when you don't understand your audience. Like it's similar to saying that if you have to present something to kids and you bring an argument from medical school of science or whatever. So I think that's like a wrong place to bring your thing, because first of all your audience will not understand you, and secondly if you say something or do something wrong by any chance, it will give you a feedback of heated arguments and everything. So here I think that's what I see. It's a big miscommunication here, and the term would be like ad hominem for this one. So I think that's all I can add to it. So you should know what audience you're targeting, and then choose your words and your facts and figures and even emotional things, because then it simply results to such emotional barriers.
I want to ask Aisha a question. Aisha, when you heard these beautiful arguments and justifications, did you get emotional too? Because I'm totally emotional right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I loved the fact that, both Dania and Noman came at it from different angles, and then we discussed all the different potentialities. So I had a really good time in my breakout session.
Thank you so much, Tanya and Atif. This was just so well done. I am now really excited.
And Atif, sorry. Mess up the names.
Okay, all right. So group 2, would you like raise your hands? And group 1, could you lower your hands? I can do it myself, but I'd rather you do it. So, okay. So who is in group 2? Khadija is letting you know that she really appreciated group 1. Okay. Khadija is letting me know that she's a part of group 2. Also, I think you did appreciate group 1. Okay, so can you use the raise hand function? Manar used it, and Khadija, do you know where it is?
I can't see it though.
So if you click on participants, or actually, Bushra, can you tell us how? So above the
Yeah, sorry, I got it here.
No. There we go. Okay, thank you. So could you tell us what you saw in image 2?
Yeah, sure. I can see like a family.
Yes, some friends. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Let Marine.
Okay,
Okay,
so
there's some.
who wants to go first, and then the other person goes second?
Khadija, you can go first, and I can go.
All right. Go.
Okay, so I can see some friends or maybe family members going on a trip.
Mhm.
And there's spaceship/car, and I can see happy faces, so it brings out like positive energy in the picture. And yeah, I can't see anyone being sad except for that sluggish type character, which has like an upside down smile, which I don't know if like it's happy or sad, but I'm considering being happy. And yeah, they're going, I guess, on into some other planet. And yeah, that's all. I guess Marine can say something
Okay.
else.
Manar, right?
Yeah, they are just some friends going on a trip to another planet. They are just happy, and
Why do you think they're going to another planet?
because there's a planet beside by them, that's why.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yes.
And do you agree with your teammate Khadija that they are
Yes,
happy?
I agree.
Why?
Because they're, like you can say, they're friends, so they might be happy going on a trip together.
How do we know they're friends? How do we know they're not just stuck in this strange looking car together and they have no other options? We're just exploring here.
Yeah, so friends.
Why do you think they're friends? That's a good question, Khadija. Do you think they're friends? What do you think their relationship is like?
I mean, if they would have been complete strangers and they wouldn't have liked each other, I mean, they would have like strange faces or like just not
So
happy faces, maybe.
Oh, so you would have expected to see their attitude, demeanor being a bit more different.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. Thank you, both of you. This was really good. I love like how we were able to like talk about it a little bit and explore it more. And I can totally see like the justifications coming through. Super excited. Thank you so much, group 2. So group 3, please raise your hands and let me know what you think is going on in this image.
Yes, so we had a lot of discussion on this image, and Zahid helped us a lot. We ended our discussion with the conclusion that this image kind of is a display of discrimination. In one case, we can assume that the orange fish are not letting the green fish join them, because it's kind of a tradition element over here, because they think if the green fish joins them, it's like it's not something which has been happening in a long time, and it would have some sort of bad consequences. But we can also look at this picture the other way around and assume that the green fish belongs to some sort of elite group and does not prefer to join the orange fish. But in any case, it's discrimination. And Zara, would you like to add on something? Or Hamza?
So yeah, basically Maheen just cleared everything up. We did go through the questions again and again, and that's what we thought was, this is exactly what is in an individual's mind. They will not let anyone come in due to their social status or their appearance, and regardless of any other situations that are going on. So yeah.
Thank you both.
Yeah, if I may add just one last piece.
Yeah, definitely, Zahid. Of
So
course.
thank you so much, Zahra and Mahreen. Obviously, they were, very, what should I say? They both brought in different perspectives. One thing that we discussed, one of the questions was, where do you think it is, or where they are, these people? So first we started by saying that they are in water because these are fishes, and then we realized that we have to look at the bigger
Thank
picture.
you for acknowledging my answer.
So we decided that this is actually not in water. This is just a representation of what can be anywhere in the world. So this is also how we tried to look at the bigger picture. And the other element which someone mentioned in the room was that this is a piece of a much bigger picture, which you will see that there are 10 more red fishes which will have a barrier to these orange fishes. So this is also something that, how the good things multiply, the bad things also multiply. So that can also be one aspect of looking at this picture, that maybe we are
Creating
looking
walls.
at, yes, 1 to 6, but there could be another, equation, another part of this equation, which is from 10 to 15, 15 to 20. And yes, that's it. Thank you so much.
And just
I
like
think
that way, the tradition goes on.
Yes, I think we lost Hunza. I can't see her in the room. But
she was a part of your team?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, she's not there. I hope all is well with her. But once again, thank you so much, Mahreen, Zahra, and Rajaa. Thank you so much.
Thank you, group 3. This was really introspective. I absolutely enjoyed that. I did want to ask, I think it was Mehreen who said this. I might be wrong. You labeled the green fish as elite, and you said that maybe the green fish wasn't allowing the orange fishes to enter the other side. I don't know if I fully agree with that, and I have a reason for it. So my justification is because of the direction of the hand. So when we usually tell someone to stop, the palm is the one that's facing the entity we want to stop. If it was the other side, then I think I would agree more with the green fish being elite argument. But otherwise, I did not find that particularly convincing. The rest of it, though, I absolutely understood where you were coming from, and I did like that how you think that this is something that could multiply because of a tradition that keeps going. So that was
had the same perspective, and the green fish being the elite was a perspective which was proposed by someone else in the group. So I just wanted to, present their perspectives as well.
Okay. So it's great that you wanted to present that perspective, but I did want to just like show that, I'm not saying that the argument is wrong. I'm just saying why it didn't convince me. And that's something that often happens. But this was a really good job. Thank you so much, Group 3. Aisha, would you like to make a comment or contribute?
I know we're running short on time, but just to, some food for thought, to me, it looks like they're all fish and there's a human hand dividing them. So, sometimes
Like
we
a
have a
third
lot in
party.
common with other people, but there are other forces that make us feel like, oh, we're so different. Whereas, the forces that are causing that divide amongst us are actually, they've got nothing to do with us. And just a little bit of food for thought. I know we're short on time, but just wanted
Thank
to
you.
add.
Thank you so much, Aisha. We actually did discuss that also in the room, that maybe it is the third party that is, dividing two similar parties. Thank you so much.
Wow, this is wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Aisha. Thank you. And thank you, Group 3. Man, actually, I want to kind of just like talk about that for a bit, but I know we're short on time. Guys, let me know if this is something you similarly want to do. Let the PYF know what you want and let them know constantly over and over and over again, okay? This is why we're talking today. This is why it's just not one way, even though I hear my voice so many times and I hate listening to myself. But let us, just keep raising your voice. Keep letting us know what more you want to see. Maybe even this subject itself, we can explore in depth in so many different ways and design all these activities. And I would love to do that with you. Okay, so Group 4, would you like to tell us what you saw in your image?
Just one thing, Raja, I think Sabiha will leave the room. She has another commitment, so she has left us. Now we can continue. Thank you.
Okay. I hope we can reach out to Sabiha and let her know how much we appreciate her participation today. Also, Hunza, I'm disappointed that she had to leave, but I understand. So Group 4, could you raise your hand and then when your representative can speak? Can you use the raise hand function and just keep the hand raised the entire time? Hey, Furqan, is there, Farheen raised her hand. Furqan, can you do the same? I meant virtually, your virtual hand, not the actual one.
Okay.
Yeah?
Oh, okay. I've done it now.
Excellent. I see 3 participants, so there are 3 people in your group. Okay, please explain to me what's going on.
There are 4. Okay, so we've got a picture in which there are 2 people in their professional attires, and one is hands just holding yes and the other is holding no. So we assumed the story which happened in reality. So we assumed the yes person was the Trump and the no person was Biden. So they had the president. They were both the presidential candidates, and Joe Biden won. So there was a big problem in between. Donald Trump said that in Nevada there were some problems and they cheated in the votings, but the Biden said no, there was not a problem. So they both are arguing on this topic, that kind of thing.
That's very.
So we're related to that.
So based on the way they're presented here, these 2 characters, you made an analogy with the real life situation.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Interesting, and I would like to say very creative. Is there something else you would like to add to this? What do you think? Okay, so I know it's a yes or no argument. Can you generalize it a little bit outside of the US elections?
So, and the other thought we had was that 2 different managers or CEOs of different companies. So one was saying yes and the other was saying no on some kind of product, or maybe that's it. We didn't discuss it a lot, so because we had the better idea, that's it.
Yeah. Okay. No, absolutely. Fatma, you were saying something? Okay, I don't think Fatma was saying anything.
No.
Yeah, okay. All right. I wanted to ask you a couple questions, and I have some follow-ups now after this really creative story. Do you think they're agreeing with each other? Do you think there's agreement between the 2?
No.
No.
No, it's completely argument.
Okay, and
one is saying yes and one is saying no.
So they're on opposite sides right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So we don't also see them trying to find a bridge that helps both of them come to a similar kind of conclusion. We don't see cooperation in the way they're
No,
arguing.
there's no cooperation in it. Yeah.
Okay. And why do we say there doesn't seem to be any cooperation?
Because
Because
one is
it
saying
relates.
yes and one is saying no.
Which means what? Fatma. So Fatma says one is saying yes, one is saying no. Furqan, what do you think that means?
Ad hominem, they are
Like they
like,
have different thoughts.
they have different perspectives. They like divided into two groups. There's completely yes and there's completely no.
Okay, so they're like polar opposites of each other, and we don't see any other evidence that shows that they're trying to cooperate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Group 4, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to discuss a relevant issue that's going on right now. I'm excited to hear from Group 5. So Group 5, just raise your hands so I can see you.
But it is solved. Like Joe became the president, they just solved the issue.
I'm sorry, Furqan, could you repeat that?
Yeah, the issue is not solved, and Joe Biden is the complete president now.
So
The
you're
Nevada
saying
problem
there's
was
no,
solved.
like, there's no middle ground here. It's
No,
one or
there's
okay. All right. Thank you, Furqan. So we have Rabia. Rabia, who's your partner? Who is on this chat thing that I had? Wait, I can't show you my WhatsApp. Oh my God. Okay, how do I see my WhatsApp so I can see who's in Group 5? To use my phone. Just excuse me for a minute, guys.
It was Tabish Latif, the volunteer.
It was me.
Yes.
And I think it was one more person.
Yeah.
Nidra.
No. It was not Nidra.
Rabia and Sabiha. Sabiha.
Yeah,
Sabiha
it
is
was
left.
Sabiha.
Rabia
She
and
left.
Tabish.
Okay. So, do you want Tabish, raise your hand as well, so I know that you're in Group 5. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So Group 5. Let's discuss Image 5.
Yeah, so it's probably a historical picture because first of all, it's in black and white. I love history, so it was very exciting to, talk about it. So it's like a meeting room in the castle where I think the authorities that might be king, they are showing something to their people, and they probably know each other, and it's an ancient time. Maybe a treaty is getting signed, or if they're showing a letter from some other kingdom, or maybe a legislation or something kind of. And I think they're calmly listening to it. The people, they are very calmly listening to it. And it's a serious situation, kind of a serious agreement. Maybe they're signing something or they're reading a letter, and I think. And the people, they're very calm, like they're not and we discussed today that in the critical thinking that you should be talking in a way that the other person is not getting offended by what you are saying. So I think they are saying something that the people are not getting offended by, because they are listening to it very calmly, and they're not getting offended by what the person is showing them. Or maybe the volunteer wants to say something.
Tabish, would you like to add something to Rabia's description?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more thing here. It's looked like a bit of a situation where it might be a bit tensed, and at the same time,
a serious situation.
yeah. So it's really depend because so some of the people are just focusing on the expressions of the audience from the hall, like who's just on the front, and the other person is pretty much have the credibility that everybody is listening to that person sitting quite nicely.
Okay, thank you, Group 5. I have a couple of questions. So one, Rabia, you said that the audience looks kind of calm, while Tabish thinks they look a bit tense. Is there a way for the two of you to kind of figure out why your perspective is different here? Like, why do you think it's, why does one person think it's calm and the other one thinks it's tense? I just want to know why you think it's calm, Rabia, basically. Let's start.
They're attentively listening to it. So some people are calm, some are tensed, because they're listening to what they're saying. They're focused on what they are showing, or maybe they are talking about. So the expression can vary from being tense to calmly listening. That's human nature.
when you think that nothing offensive is being said, so offense can be in two ways, right? One way, it's like an ad hominem attack. That's offensive.
Yeah.
Another offensive thing is something that we just don't like, and we take
Yeah,
offense
exactly.
at that, but it's not a personal attack. So which one do you think it is?
It's like something like a kingdom kind of a thing. So maybe they are authorized to say these things. So if the public is not satisfied with what their king or their government is doing, they would be offended by that. That kind of a situation is here. So maybe they are not offended by what they are listening, what they are gonna get as like, it's like a government now. So if the government is saying something offended, they would definitely get offended. Like it could be political issues or the rights that people are getting in that area. So maybe they're talking about something like that.
How would they show their offense? If this image showed an offended audience, what would the audience, do you think?
Like for example, for example, like women, they might not be getting the rights they should be. Like they're not allowed to work, or they're not allowed to leave their houses. So they're gonna get offended for sure. So maybe
how would that be in this image? Like in this image, if you wanted to see an offended audience, how would the artist illustrate the offended audience? What would the audience, do you think they'd be doing that would convince you? You look at this image and you're like, definitely this audience isn't happy. What would you think you'd be seeing?
There would be a
some of them would
chaos.
be
Standing or shouting.
Yes, that's them. You're right. They might even be throwing something
Yeah.
at the, right?
Maybe the guards would be stopping them from attacking.
Yes, excellent. This is amazing. Rabia, Tabish, thank you so much. We will now move on to group 6. I hope everyone's enjoying this discussion and learning from it. So we're at the last group now. Please raise your hand. I love the claps, Manar. Thank you. So 4 participants. Thank you, Rabia. So we have, Tabish, I'm going to lower your hand. So we have Huda, we have Rabia, lower hand. Huda, Sundus, and Nabiha. Hey, Nabiha, nice to see your face. Hello.
Hello, thank you.
And Zainab. So Rabia, can you lower your hand? I think I lower it, and then you want to lower it, but you end up raising it because I lowered it.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, I think it's just me being paternalistic here. Okay, all right. So group, okay, before we go on to group 6, I realized we have hit the 12, the noon mark where we were supposed to end the session. Let me just check. Okay, so Bushra, our head of education, says that the workshop has been amazing. Thank you to everyone who's participating today to make this amazing. We would love it if you would stick around for a little bit more, maybe like 12 to 20 minutes. This is also feedback that we'll give to the remaining instructors, the forthcoming instructors, and let them know that we were, we did the first workshop, and through the participation of our the students and the volunteers, we were able to see that this is the amount of time that you should reserve for your workshop, that it might not end up being 2 hours because of all of these reasons. So if anyone wants to leave right now, could you let me know? Like, could you raise your hand or clap or something like that? So shall I continue?
Let's take the Zoom photo really quick.
Oh, okay.
So for our Instagram, we just really want to show off this amazing gathering that we have here. So, Rajaa, if you could stop sharing the screen for just a little bit, and if everyone could just smile and look their best. If you can open up your cam just for this photo, at least. I'll take off my glasses. Zainab, will you be able to take the screenshot?
Yep. I'm gonna take the screenshot. I'm just gonna say 1, 2, and 3, and then just do any pose or anything that you guys would like. Okay.
Zainab, I do want to point out that everyone should look at the lens of their camera and not at themselves on the Zoom call, because then your eyes will be looking at something different. So look at the lens, right?
Sure, that's perfect. Okay, is everyone ready? First of all, like whoever wants to switch on their cameras has done that. Okay, so I'll just say 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'll just take another one just to be on the safe side. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, done. Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead. Group 6. Let me show everyone.
Rajaa, I have a request.
Yes, Farhan?
Can you please send us or only me on the Gmail the PPT you have created so I can read it on my own as well after the class?
Yeah.
We will be sending up a follow-up email with the presentation, with the feedback form, and a request for testimonials. So please stick around.
Because during the lecture I was not at my extreme level of learning, so that's the
I
problem.
know we all
I
have
would
our
read
own
it.
levels of learning. Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. I will send you the presentation definitely. Also, if anyone wants to do that, you could reach out to me. Send me a direct message on Instagram. So I usually like my Instagram is private, so you might not be able to access it. But I would definitely love to start a chat with you and get to know you that way, and we can have like a back and forth there if you would like. Okay. Also, please follow the Instagram page of the PYF Dubai and let them know what you want to hear, what you want, what kind of workshops you'd like. Sorry, not what you want to hear, what you want them to hear from you. Okay. All right, whatever. It's been 2 hours. Words not coming properly. Okay, group 6. Let's start. Okay, this is your image.
Yeah, so first of all, I would like to start off by answering the questions that are like in the slide before this. So we have this image 6, which we all know and recognize as the Scooby-Doo cartoon. So of course, these people, like obviously, they trust each other well enough so that they're moving towards something, and like they have a set determination, like they have a set location in mind, and they're determined to move towards it, right? So they seem to be in a curious or like an observation mood, like they're observing as they go, like to a specific location or to something, okay? And like they're moving towards like something together. And obviously like they're moving together and they have a dog with them. So they obviously know each other well enough. So they can be friends, or they could be like they can know each other, they could be family or whatever. So I would like to ask Sundus to add up a few things more.
I would like to comment a bit more on the kind of position they're in or the kind of place they're in. Just like Huda mentioned that they're being cautious and they're sticking together. Obviously, they're close to each other and they're sticking together. And if they were in a common place, or if they were in a familiar place, they would have been a little bit far apart. They would have been chilling around, talking to each other, but they seem a little cautious. So that means that they're either lost or they are in an unfamiliar place, and they seem as if they could be attacked any moment, or they don't know where they're going. And yeah, that's it. I would like to pass it on to our volunteer, Zainab, in case you're going to speak.
Zainab, you look a bit startled
You look
here.
shocked.
I observed your facial expressions, and that's how I'm justifying my claim.
No, for in our breakout session, I left it totally upon them because I wanted them to explore their opinions rather than me, like, just giving my opinions, because at the end of the day this workshop is for them and I would like their opinions. So that they even discussed that it was going to be Huda and Sundus that they're going to speak back and forth, and then Sundus just puts it on me and I'm like, wow. But no, like no, that's totally fine, that is totally fine, no worries. But no, like I totally agree with whatever Huda and Sundus has talked about in this image. And one reason why we could even know about this is because this is a very common cartoon that we all watched, so we already know the background story of um what these characters are and who they are and what they do and everything. So it's kind of like a preconceived notion too, that okay, so we know what's going on in their background and it just kind of relates to this story, this picture of what's happening. So I think most of the views were taken from that point. But yeah,
That is an actually completely valid thing to say, because you do have knowledge from before about this cartoon, and this knowledge is used to justify what you see in this image. And I do absolutely enjoyed what Huda and Sundus had to say. I especially liked how your justification for them being a bit tense, for the area around them being unfamiliar. I think those were really astute observations. Particularly, I think if it's okay for me to ask you a couple of questions, what about their body language shows? Thanks. What about their body language particularly shows that they're tense? I would especially like to hear from Nabiha. Nabiha, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, sure. Well, before that, I would like to add that they're actually relying on the dog to guide them. It seems like it's trying to go on front, and as it is not it's not a human, it has more reliance on their senses. So it seems like it's a dark place, and they're trying to find something or looking for something. So I think they're relying more on the dog, and as they have been together for a long time, they actually rely more on the dog in these kind of cases.
Maybe if I were to say that they don't seem to be relying on the dog to direct them, can you find a justification for that in the image?
Well, I would say they also have their own senses. So I think they're also relying on themselves.
What about their body language or the way the direction they're looking at suggests that they might not be relying fully on the dog to guide them?
Because they are not exactly back of the dog, or like they're not actually looking on the same way the dog is looking. They're actually searching for themselves too.
Yeah, because I figured if they were just being directed by the dog, which might actually be true. We don't know what's the truth, right? We just have our own claims from our observations. So I think they would be looking at the dog, kind of like, where is this clear? Something like that.
Look for more direction in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Group 6. I hope everyone's enjoying these discussions, just, looking at these unrelated images and just trying to figure out what's happening, giving our justifications for it. Okay, so now it's 12:07. I wonder how much you like me that you will stick around just a little bit more, because we're going to get into something that's known as a syllogism. And this is where it gets a little bit more technical. Not that it wasn't technical before, but the word syllogism itself kind of like makes it seem as though we're entering something that's a bit more high level, but we're going to break it down. It's not going to be that tough. So Group 6, could you lower your hand now? And then we'll continue. Okay. All right. Brilliant job, everyone. Just so good. Thank you. So a syllogism is a type of logic. It was formalized by our friend Aristotle, who we came across a little while back, actually in the beginning. Should dedicate this to Aristotle, but he's very famous and probably has a million things dedicated to him. So a syllogism looks at two or more different premises. It's a premise is just a statement, and then draws a conclusion from those premises. So we have an example here. We have premise 1. All humans are mammals. Then we have premise 2, Socrates is a human. So what do we conclude? We conclude that Socrates is a mammal. That makes sense, right? Like everyone understands how we came to that conclusion. So we related Socrates to the class of humans, and we have a property, mammal, associated with that class. This is just one way to look at it. There are multiple ways to understand syllogisms. So Socrates belongs to the class human. He's a member of the class human. The class has a property mammal, or belongs to a bigger class called mammal. And from that, we infer that Socrates must be a mammal. So this is basically how a simple, straightforward, categorical syllogism is set up. We can now come to different types of conclusions through those syllogisms. Now, Zara, you raised your hand. Zara, do you have a question?
Yeah, could you go back to the premises one again?
Okay. I'm here.
Yeah, I just needed to clear out a bit because I was lost.
Okay, so Zara, just let me explain what a conclusion is, like what kind of conclusions we have, and then we'll come back to the syllogism, okay? So now when we reach a conclusion, the conclusion can be either valid or invalid, and it can be either true or false. So when a conclusion is valid, it means that through the premises, we've reached the conclusion. The conclusion is related to the statements that we've just made, that the conclusion is something that follows from the premises. It's not as if the conclusion is completely unrelated to the premises. It's not as if the premises don't make sense in relation to the conclusion. So if the argument is well structured, then the conclusion that you will come up with is going to be a valid conclusion. However, For a conclusion to be good, it must also be true. It's great that the argument is valid. It's great that you look at the premises and the conclusion makes perfect sense. But it's not very useful for us to look at false conclusions, which are basically just not believable. So if a conclusion is just factually wrong, then it's false. That means that one of the premises, either the premises are false themselves or the conclusion is just unrelated to the premise and it's just some random statement that also happens to be not believable. This is a lot of stuff, I understand. So we're going to look at some examples to understand, to really hit the point home. So if we go back to our previous syllogism, and over here, I would like your help here to understand if it's valid or true or both. What do you think is going on here? All humans are mammals. Socrates is a human. Therefore, Socrates is a mammal. First of all, is this syllogism valid?
Yes.
Yes, I see some heads nodding along. So whoever is not nodding along, is it because it's not clear, or do you want to ask a few questions? Let me just expand the screen so I can see all of you. And then bring it down. Okay. So do we agree that the syllogism is valid?
Yes.
Okay. Why do you think it's valid? Okay. It's valid because we get to the conclusion by reading the statements before, right? So this is why it's valid. We will look at some more examples. Is it true? Just nod or shake your head. Sundis is very enthusiastically nodding her head because she's like, of course Socrates is a mammal. What kind of stupid question is that? What is she going on about? Okay, so let's move on to, so here are the answers. It is valid because you can reach the conclusion from the premises. And it's true because we can confirm that all humans are mammals, and we do know that Socrates was a human. So Socrates being a mammal is absolutely true. What is a false premise? Here is a very silly example of a false premise. All humans are fish. Socrates is a human. Thus, Socrates is a fish. Is it a valid argument?
No. A baseless one?
Yeah, there's no base.
Sure, I have a tail.
I don't know if baseless is a way that I would look at it right now. Let's stick to two descriptions of conclusion. If you say baseless, it's not a fact.
Yeah,
because
true.
humans are not fish, right?
Yeah.
What about its validity? Is it valid?
The premises 2 is valid, but 1 and C, I don't think so. I mean, obviously.
Yeah,
No.
like 1 is obviously not valid because it's not a fact at all.
Okay, so now I see what's going on here. So a conclusion, so a premise cannot be valid or invalid. A premise can either just be true or false. The argument can be valid or invalid. Why? Because validity just means that you can reach the conclusion from the premises, that the premises are related to the conclusion that you've drawn. Let's look at some more examples to understand validity. You're definitely right that the conclusion is not true. The conclusion is absolutely false because Socrates is not a fish. And why is Socrates not a fish? Or so why is the conclusion false? Because all humans are not fish either. There are two statements here that are wrong. But we need to understand validity first. We have this exercise here. So we're going to try and use this exercise to understand conclusion, true and false, and valid and invalid. Okay, so in question 1, to exist, one must think. I think, therefore, I must exist. Is this valid or is this true or false? Is the conclusion true or false? Atif, you raised your hand.
It's true.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
It's true.
I don't think I got the question then, because I feel like it's false.
So the argument here is that to exist, whatever exists must be able to think. This is a very confusing thing.
I mean,
I think, therefore I must exist.
No, I mean like the premise one, which is like to exist, one must think. I mean, for something to exist, does it really require a consciousness
Yeah,
to
I agree.
think? Like, this car exists, this car doesn't think, but like we use it in our language, in lingo, that this car exists, man. What you talking
I have
about?
the same idea, and
Yeah.
I'm agreeing to
No
others.
livings cannot think.
So I
But they
want
do
you to
exist.
take this up with Descartes, who is the philosopher who came up with this. He's dead, but
I need to have a conversation with him.
Yes, you do. So we're not going to get into that about what Descartes has to say. If we assume premise 1 to be true, is then the conclusion valid?
Yes, then it is valid.
Then it's
Otherwise,
yeah.
Okay. So if we agree with Descartes, then we think that this conclusion it's true.
Yes.
It's true. But is it valid? I want to really drive the point home for validity.
No, it's not valid.
No, it's not valid.
Why is it not valid? It pains me to say that you're wrong, but you are wrong. Sorry.
no, it's not valid because for anything to exist, I mean, like a lot of things exist and not everything thinks.
So out of what you're saying is a truth statement. You're talking about the believability of something. What I'm
Yeah.
talking about is whether this argument is well structured. I'm looking at the way this argument has been presented to me. Let's look at an invalid argument. That's absolutely invalid. But okay, look at question 2. Question 2 says, all cats are blue. Mano is a cat, Mano is blue.
So if we were to think that, okay, if let's just say that all cats are blue, then Mano is blue and it makes sense. But then if the first premise is wrong, which is that cats are not blue, then it's just wrong. Like the
Okay, so
believability.
when you say it makes sense, you're talking about its validity. You're not
Yeah.
talking about its believability. So if you assume that the premises are true, and does the argument make sense then? Let's
Yeah.
assume that's true. That
Yeah,
is
just-
validity.
Yeah.
Okay. So can you then look at question 1 and tell me if it's valid? Assume premise 1 is true. Does the
Yeah,
argument
then
make sense?
Yeah, then it makes sense.
Okay.
Because
Does
it
that
completely
help?
depends on the assumption.
I'm sorry, I can't see who spoke. Can you speak again?
Yeah, I'm Furkan. Because it completely depends on the assumption. If we assume that all cats are blue, and then Mano is a cat, so this means that Mano is blue. So it's valid as well. And it
Yes, exactly. We're not looking at whether something is true or false. We are looking at the way the argument has been structured. Okay, that is when we
Okay,
comment on validity and invalidity. All right, let's look at another example of, hopefully I place an example that's invalid. Okay, here we go. So we're looking at question 3 now. What is up with question 3? Blue is a color, red is a color, all colors are pink.
Invalid.
completely
Okay.
Invalid.
All right. So because I'm trying to see how well we understand this, how well I'm able to explain this. Okay. The conclusion says that all colors are pink. Okay. So is it true or false?
false.
Right.
Because
Now,
they're bringing a whole different color in the premises. That's it.
okay. So now is the argument valid or invalid?
Invalid.
Invalid.
Why
Invalid.
is it invalid?
Because there exists more color than just, I mean, like I'm going back into the validity and everything, so sorry. I mean, because it doesn't make sense when we have blue and red in the argument. How are you just
Even
bringing
if we
pink
assume
in?
it doesn't make sense. Like they're talking about two different things.
Yeah, they're talking about two different things, so you are bringing in something totally different.
Yeah, that's it. That's right.
Excellent. Now keep this in mind because we're going to move on to deductive reasoning where we're really going to understand this. Hopefully. Otherwise, I need to work on explaining this better for the next session. Okay, so question 4. Let's do this really quickly. All flowers need light. Roses need light. Thus, roses are flowers.
Valid.
Valid.
That's valid.
Valid. Totally valid.
It's invalid.
Well, no.
It's invalid. I'll tell you. Well, I don't want to do this. I don't want to tell you why. Okay, all
Because
flowers.
Oh, it's because
I
all
think-
flowers don't need
Yeah.
light. Yeah.
No, I think it's because the premise 2 it does not talk about rose being a flower, I guess.
Yes, Atif.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
That makes sense.
Exactly, right? So remember with the Socrates example, guys, I'm sorry if I keep like going in and out of this whole thing because I just want to see your faces and I have to expand or shorten the screen. It's a whole thing. Okay, so if we go back to Socrates, where is he? So do you notice that we have a category called humans, this group here, right? And we describe a property of this group, fish. Then we say Socrates is a member of this group, human, right? And this is how we say that Socrates is a fish. Over here in question four, we have a group, flowers, and we ascribe to them a property set of needing light. Then we talk about roses, and instead of saying that roses is a member of the group flower, we just give a property of the roses, which happens to be the same as the property of the group itself, but we don't link rose to that group, right? This is where the argument stops being valid. The reason instinctively we said that it was valid is because we do know that roses need light. So we're using our intuition to understand whether the conclusion is true or false. And that's perfectly okay. But if we're talking about the validity of an argument, in that case, we need to look at the argument itself. Whether we know from external causes or not that the conclusion is true is not relevant here. What's relevant here is whether the argument is a good, well-constructed argument. Okay, we'll look at this a little bit more as we enter into deductive reasoning. So this is the answer key. We already discussed it. So I'm just going to leave this here for the future if you need to. Can we conclude by 12:30? Guys, I'm just going to keep pushing it, but I don't think I'm going to go beyond 12:30. Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm going to leave the answer key here so that when you get the presentation afterwards, you can look at it. Okay. Here it is. So this is deductive reasoning. I'm going to shrink this because I can't see most of the screen. So this is what we were talking about, everyone. We have premise one, which is the major premise. It's the major premise because it talks about a general theory. And the theory here is that humans are mammals, okay? Then we have a minor premise, which is like a smaller fact that we know, that Socrates is a human. So what we do is we take Socrates, put him in this class, and ascribe whatever property the class has to the member of this class. This is what makes the argument valid. Therefore, Socrates is a mammal. This is how he ends up being a mammal. Deductive reasoning is an extremely important part of the scientific process as well. When you form, well, it's after the scientific process. Well, it's a part of science, y'all. Okay, so basically what happens is you have these theories, right? You need to now test these theories. So how do you test them? You look at specific examples and you see whether they prove or disprove the theory. This is deductive reasoning. And because science is a process, you constantly keep doing that. Whenever you make a theory, you can't just sit back with the theory and be like, that's great. What you do is you keep testing it. You look at new data. You go to other people, other scientists, and you ask them, hey, what do you think about this theory? And can you do this experiment for me to find out how good this theory is? And through that, you can figure out whether a theory is fine the way it is, or if it needs to be modified, or rarely it gets rejected. Theories usually just don't get thrown out completely. What you do is you kind of like apply some constraints to the theory. You modify it. Instead of saying that all swans are white, you say that all swans are white except in Australia where they're black. Something like that. So you just like expand the theory a little bit so that you have a couple more things you can add to it and make it specific. Atif, you raised your hand.
I just wanted to add to the theory part.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like relevant to the topic right now, but I feel like I should just say it. If you're
Okay.
okay with it. Theory is confirmed as a theory when it proves your past, it makes sense to the present, and it can help you predict the future and solve the problems that you have never come across before. So if it can do that, then it concludes as a theory. But keep in mind that the theory is never a fact. It's always a theory. So I just wanted to add that to you.
Absolutely. I want to do the whole handshake reaction, but I can't find it. So That's absolutely true. Theories are never facts because science, we'll get to that actually. It's on my last slide. I think I have maybe 2 more slides left. I'm really stretching it here, but I did not know we would need this much time. Okay, so how do we make a theory? We make a theory by using inductive reasoning. So inductive reasoning kind of intuitively works the opposite of deductive reasoning. So in deductive reasoning, we already have a theory or an idea, hypothesis, and then we go and test it out. We use specific examples. But in inductive reasoning, we have all these like data points. We have these random facts or whatever that we've come across, and we look at them and we try to like link them together. We see if there's a pattern behind all of these different data points that we see. And then we come up with a hypothesis. So we say that, okay, so I'm just going to stick to the swan example. So we see a white swan in England, we see a white swan in Germany, we see a white swan in Belgium. So we conclude that swans are white. This is our hypothesis. Then we test it out. We keep testing it out. We go to other countries in Europe and we find white swans. And then we come to this conclusion we come to this theory that all swans are white. This is an inductive reasoning process. It is a very important part of the scientific method. And this is how in science we come up with provisional truths. Now there's something very specific about provisional truths we want to go over. You can look at all these data points and you can come up with a theory until you hit a data point that doesn't match your theory. For example, you're removing coins from a bag. You remove one coin, it's 50 fils. You remove a second one, it's 50 fils. You do the third one and the fourth one, and they're all 50 fils. So can you come to this conclusion with a margin of certainty that all the coins in the bag are 50 fils? Do you think that's true? Or would you come to that conclusion yourself? Yeah, some nods, or maybe you don't. Maybe you're a very good scientist and you're like 4 data points are not enough and I want to keep going. Is that what's going on, guys?
Yeah.
Until or unless the bag is empty, I wouldn't know that the whole bag is filled with 50 fils, right?
Wow.
Yeah, it depends on the total number of coins that were there in the bag. If there were only 4 coins, I mean, 100% yes, there are only. Maybe if there were 5 coins, I might say, yeah, I can agree with this statement. But I don't think I will still agree with the statement that all the coins in the bag are 50 fils, because it just depends on probability and chance. That maybe the first 4 times I was lucky and I did get 50 fils miraculously or something.
Okay.
But I don't think personally I would agree with
But
this.
like if we are doing an experiment, we cannot do it. Suppose we are doing it on the population. We cannot do it on each and every person. We have to take a sample for that. So it's just a sample of that. Like the whole.
Then our sample would be like maybe 5.
Yeah, it depends on the sample size. It depends on the total number of size.
The total number and
What
then the
am I
sample
even
size.
doing here? You guys
The
are brilliant.
conclusion you can reach onto is that it is highly probable that you'll get 50 fils, but not that you'll get 50 fils on every.
Okay, so all of you scientists keep this in mind and we'll move on to the next slide, because the 5th coin, it turns out, is 25 fils and the sample size is actually accurate. That's really good. So does this mean the previous conclusion was false? Yes, Atif, you have a question?
No, I just wanted to add on to that. It comes down to a question of possibility and probability. So it is possible that we have 25 fils in it, but it is more probable that we have 50 fils in it. So the previous conclusion from our whole experiment, considering that we only knew that there are like 4 coins, then it's true. Otherwise, it's just that it is probable that 50 fils, but not possible.
Yes, that is a whole different concept that I wish we had the time to discuss, but that's really important to share out there. Thank you so much. So we do have the idea of like, is it possible? Because that's when we're in the realm of possibility, right? Our conclusions are safer because they are at least a little bit attached to the truth or like hinged by the truth, right? But it might be that the probability may vary. But we will talk about it in hopefully a future workshop. I don't know, but sure. Okay, so the previous conclusion, I'm not going to say was false. The previous conclusion was provisional. And the reason it was provisional is because it was based on a specific sample size. As you're actually investing more into the scientific method, and if we discuss this more, go on and do more workshops on it or something, we can talk about how we can decide the sample size, what are probability and possibility, like Atif said, what are the different ways in which we can test the validity of our statements and so on. So science is a really rigorous process, and there are multiple ways to come as close to the truth as possible. You're never 100% certain. To say something is a scientific fact is an oxymoron or a paradox. Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah, paradox.
It's a paradox, right? So there's no such thing as a scientific fact. Because even when you reach a hypothesis, you constantly keep testing it. You go back to deductive reasoning, because now that you have a theory, you can look at specific examples to test the strength of your series, of your theory. Yeah. Okay. But that leads me to a very important conclusion. I think this is the last slide for today. Just because science is not 100% certain, it does not mean that science is wrong. Science is not false. The idea that there's conspiracies out there, they may have some merit. You can always look at conspiracy theories. I'm not discouraging you from exploring. But the idea that science is always like factually incorrect or it's trying to mislead us are very dangerous ideas. And this is something we don't want to encourage here, because science, the process, has ways of ensuring that the claims that we're making are as close to the truth as possible, are as good as it can possibly get in a situation. So we're not going to use something as a scientific fact all the time, especially if it brings, if it's not a fact that is very comprehensive, maybe unrelated to a situation. We're not going to use it to dismiss another person's perspective, which is something that's very commonly done. But at the same time, we are going to give science the respect that it does deserve, because it's a rigorous process. It constantly keeps happening. When a scientist is doing experiments, they're expected to declare their starting point. They're expected to declare their limitations. What are their biases? Sometimes those biases are like, oh, I am from an affluent background. I am of a certain ethnicity, and this affects my perspective. So these are ways in which they can declare, they can be clear from where they're coming from. Before I conclude this, I just want to ask Atif, Atif, you have a question, please let us know.
No, I just wanted to say sorry because I want to add more to what you said, if you're okay with it.
Sure, Atif. So we're running out of time, unfortunately. Maybe you guys can hang back for the next 5 minutes or something just to talk to me, but it'll be okay if you need to leave. So Atif, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just make it quick. So to really sum this all up, you could use the quote that Neil deGrasse Tyson has said, that as the area of our knowledge grows, the perimeter of our ignorance does too. And so the whole argument that, the whole slide that Rajaa brought, it's like, it comes down to the whole theory thing, which is that, for a theory to be a fact, you need to know about every other particle that exists in the universe. So if you don't know that, then it's going to stay a theory, and theories evolve, they change. So while theory might make you, reach to a certain destination, it's never a fact, but it is still respectable.
Absolutely. That is a very apt summary, Atif, and thank you so much. And I love the idea of emphasizing that the more you know, the less you know, at least. And I think so, because there's just so much more to explore. And with that, I do want to conclude today's workshop. Thank you so much for being a part of today. Thank you for being so patient, but helping us figure out the logistics of our first virtual academy. It's been a difficult, tough time over the past few months. And we've been trying to rearrange our own ways of doing things to make sure that this is successful. So I really appreciate that. Yes, of course. Yes, for sure.
So this was amazing. This was the best possible first virtual workshop we could have had. And thank you all. Everything was amazing, from our wonderful lead to the participants to the volunteers. Super. Thank you all so much for making this possible. Before we conclude, just want to say watch out for the feedback email with the feedback form, the slides. If you want to offer us a testimonial, please do so as soon as possible. We want to put that up on Insta. Hope you sign up for other workshops. If not, go back to our workshop sign up form. Let me see if I can quickly share that with you here, Abhi, and sign up for other workshops as well. Our next one is on research writing, the social sciences, which is on, I'll put that in the feedback email. So which is on Monday at 7 p.m. with me and Aisha Bernie. Aisha Bernie's here actually on call. So we hope to see you there. All right, and with that, any of the last words, Rajaa? Good to go?
I just wanted to ask if anyone wants a future workshop on the scientific method. Please let me know in your feedback form. Let me know what kind of workshops that you would like me to ensure we can deliver, and we'll work with Bushra and the rest of the team to do so.
Awesome. I just put the link to sign up for more workshops in the chat. If you have not done that yet, go ahead and do that. And we hope to see you again soon.
All right.
Just guys, just one last thing. If you guys are up for the testimonials, please make sure to attach a photo of yours, because I would really like to put that on the Instagram page, since like I'm part of the content creation team for PIF. So if anyone is up for a testimonial, I just need like a few lines, just like maybe a short paragraph, what you felt about this workshop, maybe about the lead, something about Rajaa, or just what you learned, what you took back home from this workshop, and your picture, please. So whoever is up for it, please can you send it to me by today so that I can post it on Instagram as soon as possible. Thank you.
Where can I?
Sorry, Nabiha, just 1 second. Zainab, is it possible for people to send maybe video testimonials if they're comfortable with that?
I think yeah, we can accommodate video testimonials also, but I think if it's a video testimonial, I'm not sure if it's supposed to be landscape or portrait, because it just depends on how we're going to make the template, and we haven't actually gone about that. So I think it's better if it's maybe we can post it on the stories, but I'm not sure about that either. But like the way we're going with the Instagram is that we want to have like a paragraph and then your picture, just like a way to, and then like a few other things also regarding the workshop, which we're also gonna so make sure to sign up for the PIF page so you can see your this thingy.
Yes.
But I think you can send the testimonial and the paragraphs and everything to the email that you received the link from, like basically I think Nawa or Bushra's email. So just make sure to send it to them or private message them or anything with a good picture, because it's going to go on the Instagram page and you want your friends to see good pictures of yourself. So please. Thank
This
you.
is your chance to be famous.
Yeah. You're one shot at being famous.
Guys, we've been here for like 2 years, okay? I'm not famous. We can hug back. Am I doing this wrong? Okay. Did you wanted to add something? Nabiha?
Oh, about that, I was just asking where I could send the paragraph that she was asking. So I got my answer. So thank you.
All right. So we're going to end this workshop now. Thank you so much, guys. Have a wonderful Saturday.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, Rajaa, and thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.